Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how much we love diving deep into fascinating topics, and today is no exception. We're tackling something that's pretty much on every parent's mind these days.
Yeah, it's a big one.
How to raise amazing, well-rounded kids in a world that's like constantly plugged in, you know.
Absolutely. It's a whole new ball game compared to when we were growing up.
Right, like AI is everywhere, screens are everywhere, so we're going to be looking at this source material we've got here, and it's packed with insights, really practical strategies, stuff we can actually use to help our kids thrive, even with all the tech and distractions, all that noise.
I, I think what's so interesting about this source is that it's not just like throwing out the old rule book. It's really about adapting those timeless parenting principles to fit, well, the digital
I
age.
like that. It's like finding that balance.
Exactly. Because we can't just ignore technology, right? It's here to stay.
It's part of their world.
Exactly. So how do we work with it? How do we equip our kids to navigate it all?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really stood out to me in the source was, well, they talked about starting early,
Oh, absolutely. And not just with the
like
basics.
bedtime.
Bedtime, brushing their teeth, all that, but starting early with habits, with discipline, the things that'll set them up for success, not just in their, childhood, but in this tech-driven world we live in.
It's like you're laying the groundwork, right?
Exactly, like building a strong foundation. And there's actually some really interesting research cited in the source about brain development. It turns out that routines, like established routines in those early years, they're linked to, get this, better executive functioning skills later on.
Wait, so it's more than just like having a clean house and a schedule.
Way more. Think of it this way. It's like, okay, imagine you're building a house, right?
Okay, yeah.
The foundation is everything. It's got to be solid to support everything you build on top of it.
I see. I see.
Well, early routines, they're like that foundation for the brain. They help kids develop those crucial skills like focus, self-control, decision-making, all those things they need to navigate a world that's full of distractions.
So it's about like wiring their brains for success, basically.
You got it. It's like creating a mental blueprint for making good choices and staying focused. Even when, their phone's buzzing, their friends are online, there's a million things vying for their attention.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And you know what? It actually reminds me of something else the source talked about. Modeling the behavior we want to see in our kids. Because, oh my gosh, my parents used to be on me all the time about watching too much TV, and then they would sit there glued in the news every single night.
Classic. The do as I say, not as I do approach.
Exactly. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that, right? But seriously, how are we supposed to model like healthy tech habits when we're all struggling with screen time ourselves?
It's a real challenge. I mean, we're all glued to our devices, but this source actually had some really simple, practical suggestions like, designating certain areas in your home as tech-free zones
Okay, I like that.
or having a family unplugged hour each evening.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's about, showing our kids that we value things like face-to-face interaction, real-world experiences just as much as they value their online world.
And it's not just about telling them, it's about showing them.
Exactly. Actions speak louder than words, right?
Definitely. But what about the less obvious things, the things we might be modeling without even realizing it?
Ooh, good point.
Like our reactions to stress, or how we handle disagreements.
Yeah, that's huge. It's not just about screen time. Kids are like little sponges. They're constantly watching how we handle our emotions, how we resolve conflicts, how we treat other people. The source emphasizes this idea of modeling healthy coping mechanisms and respectful communication, even when things get tough.
Because they pick up on everything.
They really do. So, yeah, it's about being mindful of the whole picture, not just focusing on the obvious tech stuff.
And speaking of being mindful, the source also talks about structuring the day, right? Including time for like learning activities, limiting social media. But how much structure is too much? Like how do we find that balance?
Well, the key is to make sure those activities are actually engaging, that they're relevant to your child's interests. You don't want to just fill their time with busy work. And that's actually where AI can be surprisingly helpful.
Oh, interesting.
There are some amazing educational apps and programs out there now that can personalize learning, so it's more interactive, it's more enjoyable for kids.
So it's not just like mindless screen time, it's actually enriching.
Exactly. It's about using technology strategically to enhance learning.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's about using it as a tool, not just a distraction.
Ex
Which kind of leads us to this idea that the source brought up about treating older kids like mini adults, especially when it comes to their digital lives. It seems a little, I don't know, risky to give them so much freedom, but the source really stresses open communication and trust.
It definitely requires a delicate balance, right? I mean, we want to give them a sense of ownership over their digital lives. Let them make choices, learn from their mistakes. But at the same time, we've got to set those clear boundaries, equip them with the skills to stay safe and responsible online. Think of it like training wheels for the internet.
I like that analogy. It's like you're giving them the tools to ride the bike on their own, but you're still there to, catch them if they wobble.
Exactly. And it's okay for them to wobble a little bit, to make those mistakes, as long as we're there to garrot them.
But how do you handle those conversations, about the dangers online, especially with all the misinformation and negativity? Like, it's a lot.
It can be so overwhelming, right? And that's where that calm communication the source talks about becomes so crucial. When things get heated, we have to take a deep breath. Approach the conversation with empathy, with understanding, not judgment or anger, because remember, they're still learning.
They're figuring it out.
Exactly. And the online world can be just as confusing and overwhelming for them as it can be for us.
So it's about creating a space where they feel safe coming to us.
Absolutely. A space where they can ask questions, share their concerns without fear of, being judged or overreacted to.
Because I think we've all been there where, something happens online and we immediately jump to, oh my gosh, what were you thinking?
Right. That shuts down the conversation, but it's also about empowering them, giving them the tools to think critically, teach them how to evaluate the information they come across online.
To question sources, recognize biases.
Exactly. These are skills that will benefit them way beyond the internet, right?
Absolutely. It's not just about online safety. It's about being a savvy, informed citizen.
Exactly. So, yeah, reading through this source really brought home the importance of being a role model, especially in this ever-changing digital world.
It's like we're not just raising kids anymore, we're raising responsible digital citizens. And it's a constant learning curve for us too, right? I mean, things change so fast.
It really is. We have to stay informed, be willing to adapt our strategies, and most importantly, show our kids that we're in this together.
That we're figuring it out alongside them. Well said. So, the big takeaway for me today is this. Parenting in the age of AI, yeah, it's got its challenges, no doubt.
It definitely does.
But there are strategies we can use to raise our kids to be thoughtful, to be resilient, to be, tech savvy, but also balanced. And I just want to leave our listeners with this thought, this encouragement. You are not alone on this journey.
We're all in this together.
Exactly. And then while the digital world might seem overwhelming at times, remember, you have a power to shape your child's experience in it and to help them thrive. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
It's been a great conversation.
It really has. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into, well, who knows what fascinating topic. Bye, everyone.